This is TWiT.
Google, last Wednesday,
They keep putting
their
this off,
VP
don't they? They just keep,
They do.
They keep putting it off.
and I guess I'm sympathetic because we all should recognize how difficult change is.
Yes.
If there's one of the overriding themes of the podcast's lessons, it would be change is hard and nobody wants it. Just say IPv6 and you can rest your case. Anyway, their VP of the Privacy Sandbox Initiative, Anthony Chavez, said last Wednesday, the most consistent feedback we've received is the need for more time. Right? It's not Google. No. They're ready to pull the plug.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. The more time to evaluate and test the new privacy sandbox technologies before deprecating third-party cookies in Chrome. This feedback, he wrote, aligns with our commitment to the CMA, we'll get to that in a second, to ensure that the privacy sandbox provides effective privacy-preserving technologies and the industry has sufficient time to adopt these new solutions. Now, okay, I would argue that the industry will not adopt anything until you pull the plug on the old solutions and you've said, hey, we told you we were going to pull the plug. We gave you plenty of time. We're sorry the cookies are gone and you can't track anybody anymore. Here's the API that, we created to let you do that. So, start doing it. Again, no, it's like, okay, again, the lesson we keep seeing is you have to make people change. Okay, so anyway, let's back up a bit. Google once again delayed its plan to terminate Chrome's support for third-party cookies, is what this amounts to. They first unveiled this privacy sandbox initiative back in 2019, when my mustache was a little less gray, with the announcement that its implementation would begin this year in 2022, meaning that this would be the only way to do, what do we call it, interest-based advertising or something. I'm sure there's a term. Anyway, last year, after being scrutinized by the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, that's that CMA that Anthony referred to, and the US DOJ, our Department of Justice, Google announced their intention to delay their third-party cookie phase-out until the middle of next year, so 2013. And now, last Wednesday, what Anthony is announcing is another delay, saying that now it won't be, I saw August of 2024 somewhere, but, basically they won't end, they're promising not to end support for third-party cookies before the second half of 2024. And again, my feeling is just do it. Just, have the system in place, have it well tested, have it working, and then end the way it used to be and make people switch. And, in 2 years, are we still going to be here in 2 years? I think we are, Leo. Yeah. So we'll get to see what happens in the second half of 2024. We'll be right here. Under its current timeline, Google will expand the availability of its privacy sandbox trial to what they said was millions of users globally, meaning that Chrome will begin to get this technology. And they're saying by early next month, so early September, millions of users using Chrome will have this, what we've talked about before, the Topics API will be live. Then they plan to gradually roll out the test to more and more users throughout the rest of 2022 and 2023. They hope to officially launch the Privacy Sandbox APIs by the third quarter of 2023, meaning, about a year from now. Anthony said, quote, "This deliberate approach to transitioning from third-party cookies ensures that the world can continue to thrive thrive without relying.
You mean the advertisers?
Without relying on cross-site tracking identifiers or covert techniques like fingerprinting. Okay, so on the podcast we've talked, about, and we've been, if you'll pardon the choice of words, we've been tracking Google's proposed tracking technologies closely. Their first attempt at replacing third-party cookies was their awkwardly named Federated Learning of Cohorts, FLoC, which, as Leo, you grabbed the fact that was about birds, which,
all of the code names in that generation were bird-focused.
Right.
Yeah.
Then, when that failed to take off, largely because no one understood how it worked, and it was way too opaque, Google announced their new approach called Topics, which is largely the same, but is far more understandable and inherently transparent in the way it works. And as the name suggests, and we did a podcast on this, so we've completely covered this, Topics more transparently, it works more transparently and makes it obvious how and what interests it is sharing with websites that users visit. It's got about 300 different topics. And when a user visits a website that requests the information, Chrome will offer from a pool 3 different topics in a random sequence that it knows that the user is interested in. So it's sufficiently cloudy, fuzzy, that you can't track a user by seeing what topics their browser is offering from one site to the next. The site's publisher then, that is the site's server that receives these 3 randomly selected from a larger pool that the user has shown their interest in by virtue of where they've gone to the sites they've visited in the past, that server can then choose to share that information with their advertisers, which they certainly would. Okay, and being a technology hound, I understand and love these initiatives from Google. They make sense to me, but the big question in my mind will be whether any of this can actually replace all other side channel tracking. As we've observed, if you turn off cookies, bad guys will or gray guys will just use some other means of tracking, like fingerprints. All of the stuff that the Panopticlick site shows is leaking from our browsers. I think that the only way we're ever going to be free of tracking altogether is through legislation which makes it flatly and permanently illegal. We'll first need a privacy-protecting replacement, which Google's Topics does offer. But once that's in place, we're going to need governmental regulation, probably led by the EU, since they seem to have a penchant for that, to completely outlaw any and all other forms of anonymous internet user identification, aside from the use of the sanctioned API, which will hopefully become an industry-wide standard, and I think has the chance to. So again, it's going to have every step of the way. This is going to require people being forced to change. So far, it's already been slow and painful. I don't see any reason for that to be any different. Google's got this thing in place. They've got to stop moving the goalposts, or no one's ever going to believe that they're going to be serious. So hopefully, latter half of 2024, we'll finally see Chrome remove third-party cookies completely, altogether from the Chromium core. And by that time, Topics will have been around long enough so that if somebody says, wait a minute, How are we supposed to track people? It's like, well, you're supposed to use topics, and it's been around for a couple of years, so it's your fault if you're not.
It's going to be a race because that's about episode 990 thereabout. It'll be a race between whether.
Wait, we have our I was just gonna say we have our birthday on August 19th, but that doesn't correspond with episode 999 because that
fortunately it does not
into 52. Right.
Thank goodness. But yeah, it's going to be a race between whether Google clobbers third-party cookies or you clobber security now. Which will happen first? No one knows. Yeah, you can back out, Steve. It's not a permanent, I'm glad to hear you saying that. No one wants you to stop.
Okay. Well,
all right.
We'll see how it goes. May have to hang it. Well, no, I'm not making any.
No, don't say anything. Just we'll get there.
Don't say anything.
We'll see what happens when the time comes.